On Leach's Crossing in Brendale, just north of Brisbane. We're at what was formerly a priority ranked barrier, number 11 in southeast Queensland out of 13,000 potential fish barriers. As we have here, we've got a pedestrian causeway with a number of pipes, and we had a 300 to 400 mil drop off the end of the culvert apron, and it was a significant barrier. Although it was small, it was having a huge impact on native fish populations within the South Pine River. It's important because it was the first barrier in the system upstream from the estuary. Old fish undertake migrations throughout their life cycle to reach feeding grounds or breeding grounds, but it's particularly important for those diadromous fish species, those migratory ones, which spawn in the estuary and then the juveniles migrate up to fresh water. So the barriers stop that migration, and that reduces fish populations. And we're talking some of the most important fish species in Queensland. Really important recreational, commercial, indigenous fish species such as Australian bass, jungle perch, sea mullet, freshwater mullet and longfinned eels. So yesterday we came down, we put the Fishway trap in just to monitor fish numbers to see how many we're getting. And yeah, pleased to say that we're getting good numbers. We got 1,200 fish yesterday come through, and the majority of them are juvenile fish, little sea mullet 28 millimetres long up to about 40 millimetres long. And these fish are the weakest swimmers. They're not very good at negotiating high velocities, or they're not very good at jumping. Our fish, they're really, really lazy. They're not like Atlantic salmon that we see overseas where they jump up big waterfalls. Our fish need a rest in between. So that's what the Fishway is designed to do, is that we've got the little gaps in between the rocks where we've got a little bit of high velocity. The fish use their burst speed, which they use just for a very short duration. They go really fast in between the slot, and then they rest in the pool here where we've got a nice big resting area. They get their breath back, their energy reserves back, and then they use their burst speed to go through the slot again, and they reach the next pool. So it's like a set of underwater stairs each time. Yeah, sea mullet are extremely important fish species. They're culturally significant to Indigenous people. They're recreationally important and commercially important also. When the commercial guys catch them down in the beaches and in the estuaries, they process the whole fish. They use the eggs or the caviar that gets sent or exported overseas. The trunks or the fish, the whole parts of the fish that gets sent to Samoa and Tonga for food. Some of the fillets are remained in Australia for restaurants and fish and chip shops. The gut is used as fish bait. The heads is used as crab bait. So the whole fish is used. So it's a great sustainable success story. Here we've got two types of barriers. The overall head loss or the overall barrier height here was 1.8 metres. We had two issues. We had a 50 metre long culvert with half a metre fall through the culvert. So we had a velocity issue when the water flowed through the culvert. The velocity was too fast, nowhere for fish to rest. And then off the apron down here, we had a 1.3 metre drop, vertical drop straight off the apron, and we had a water surface drop barrier where fish couldn't jump up. So two different fishway designs to get fish past this barrier. We have a rock ramp fishway, 16 ridges at 80 mil drops each ridge. So fish go in between the gaps between the rock, get up into the pool, have a rest. And then through this long culvert here, we've got what's called a horizontal culvert baffle fishway, where basically we pour in situ these horizontal baffles. They've got a small slot. We've got a low flow slot in the middle, a high flow slot on the outside. The reason we've gone with this through the culvert is we're in a highly urbanised area, built up area. We've got a main road here, and we couldn't put anything in. We couldn't back the water all the way through the culvert, so we had to put in these low baffles which can still convey water, convey debris down the waterway, not cause any flood issues. So what we have here with these new horizontal culvert concrete baffles is they do create the resting areas. And so far the results have been terrific, with 2,500 fish coming through the Fishway in one day. Example, that's a invasive pest fish tilapia. It's a bit unfortunate to get, but we get them in our urbanised streams in southeast Queensland. And these little fellas here, juvenile sea mullet. These guys are striped gudgeons. They're the adults, and this one here's the juvenile, which is only recently spawned down in the estuary too, and they undertake an upstream migration. Both the adults come back and then the juveniles return to freshwater habitats. An alva, which is migrated 2,000 to 3,000 kilometres out from a trench between New Caledonia and Vanuatu. The adults go out there when they're over a metre long and they die, they spawn and die, and then the juveniles, such as this one, come back 2,000 to 3,000 kilometres back into our freshwater waterways. It's a fantastic story. It's really important that they have fishways to enable them to migrate up past the barriers. They're very susceptible to velocity barriers. Yeah, here we are today at Berry's Weir on the Bremer River. The Fishway is extremely important for diadromous fish species, important commercial, recreational, indigenous fish species such as sea mullet, Australian bass, freshwater mullet and the endangered Merri River cod. Conservation stockings have occurred in this catchment to bring the population back, so we're hoping that the Fishway will help reconnect habitats upstream and downstream and help safeguard that restricted population moving forward into the future, and also facilitate the upstream migration of Australian bass, which can only be good news for recreational anglers in the Bremer.